Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joel Scott, and I'm hosting today's webinar alongside Stuart Beattie, who heads up our KickSecure division. Shortly, Stuart will be taking us through our defence in depth approach and the continuous improvements that we're making with the release of KickSecure version 2. However, as part of my own role here at Kick, I am regularly exposed to industry data and intelligence stats and facts, sometimes the volume of which can be a bit fairly overwhelming. That said, every so often there are one or two that particularly stick in mind, and with the new KickSecure release and with this webinar in mind, there were a couple over the last few months I thought was sharing as part of our introduction today. First of those came from a UK government press release just last month that some of you may have seen, where they were urging organisations to lock the door, the phrase used on cyber criminals, and within which they highlighted that half of all UK small businesses experience a breach or cyber attack. The figure that in reality is likely much higher given the amount of unreported incidents. The second that was presented to me, and one that really I thought brought home scale of what we're up against, was that UK organisations now face, on average, this is 2,000 network breach attempts every single day. And so it's that level of constant pressure that makes a layered security strategy so critical, and it's exactly why we're continually looking to evolve our KickSecure reporting. So before I go through the agenda and pass it to Stuart, I also wanted to mention that there is a question and answer box you should see across your right hand side today. So if you have anything that you would like to ask or that comes into mind through the slides, please just whack it in the box and we'll pick it up as we go, or mention at the end of the presentation. Secondly, we'll also be recording the webinar today, so if you want to recap something at a later date or send to a colleague that couldn't make it today, then please feel free to do so. So when I pass it to Stuart, he's basically going to run through what is KickSecure, so recap sort of why we created it and how the reporting itself was made up. He'll run through what is new in version 2 and why we're continuing to develop the reporting. How you can understand the content of what's in your reports that you receive on a monthly basis, how you can look at improving your scoring, and the next steps and improvements that we're going to bring out at a later date within KickSecure itself. Lastly, there'll be a question and answer section where I'll pick up on any questions that you put in the box, as I mentioned, and we'll also cover some frequently asked questions and regular topics that we cover with customers. Stuart, pass across to yourself to run through the slides.
Let me just unmute my mic there. Thanks very much, Joel, and we'll get started talking about the KickSecure and why we put the KickSecure system together for you. So, first thing I want to talk about, though, is the challenges that many companies have around cybersecurity or around cyber. So hopefully you're all aware of what those risks are, but just to make sure, I'm just going to go through a quick update on exactly what's involved. So, as Joe mentioned, every company is under attack, whether it's a large company or just down to a one-man business. You're attacked on a daily basis, whether that's from up to kind of 2,000 probes attacking your firewalls, your internet connections a day, where people are trying to access and find ways into your network so they can do some damage, through to the hundreds of phishing emails that you get being sent into your mailboxes of you and all of your colleagues on a daily basis. And if you combine those two attacks that come in with all the information that's floating around in the dark web, so whether it's about you or your employees, and it's information that's been gathered from phishing attacks, maybe outside of your organization, and password breaches, which mean that maybe users should use the same username password for external accounts as well as for their internal accounts, mean that those passwords are flying around on the dark web. Where it gets really scary is that with the advent of AI, the AI bots are now able to take all these different data sources and piece them together into a kind of picture of what you and your business are like, and then use that to create intelligent and automated attacks to try and get in and steal your information or to do damage or basically just make money out of your company and your misery. So you're getting attacked by every direction, from every single direction. And where the challenge is that you just need to be, or the attacker needs to be lucky once, whereas you need to be lucky all the time and protect against all those different attacks at once. At the same time, as you're trying to protect against those attacks, everyone knows that budgets are getting limited, especially the amount of money you can spend in IT. So the question you have is, where can you look to try and place your budgets and get the best bang for your buck, to mean that you can get the best protection for the limited budget that you have? So hopefully you've got some protection in place already. Maybe you've got firewalls to stop those 2,000 probe attacks. Maybe you've got an anti-spam solution in place to try and stop the phishing emails. Hopefully you've got some anti-malware on all your machines, which will stop the attacks from coming in. But where can we go next to try and protect yourself against those attacks, and where you can really put that precious budget? So at Kick, we're aware of those attacks and the challenges that you have, and because of that, we decided we're going to put together a product which we named KickSecure. And hopefully the KickSecure system will allow you to identify areas which you can improve your security and really get the best bang for your buck out of the money that you have. So for anyone who doesn't work in IT, all of these different challenges are quite bewildering, and concentrating the control the resources that you have are quite important. So should you be maybe concentrating on your end user training? Should you maybe be looking at improving your antivirus solution, upgrading that? Should you be having a better firewall? Should be upgrading to Windows 11 if you still have some Windows 10 machines out there, or upgrading your servers? So to try and make it easier to understand, we've provided what we call a KickSecure score for all of our support customers, and also for any other customers who want to come on board, we can provide this for you as well. And the idea is to give you an honest idea of what your current security situation is, of what your current setup is, and give you some ideas about where you can then concentrate your money as part of your response to the challenges of the cybersecurity threats. And the score is available for those of you who are Kick customers at portal.kickict.co.uk/report. And I'll get into a bit of detail around the report in the next couple of slides. So let's talk then about what this score actually is and what it is, or how we put it together. So when we brought this out, we tried to think about what we could do to give you an indication of what your current security would look like and how we could best give you an idea of what that was. So the first thing we looked at was the existing Microsoft Secure Score, which is there. And it's available to any Office 365 customer or anyone who's got an online Microsoft presence. And it's quite a good score. It gives you an idea of how your systems are configured. But there are a few issues around it. And the issues are that they're very Microsoft-centric scores. So it's really concentrating on what the Microsoft product set that you can buy. And to a certain extent, it's about trying to improve your Microsoft licensing to get you to buy more stuff from them. But it's still quite an important score. And you'll find that quite a lot of insurance companies, because every company has a score, insurance companies will want to know what that score is so they can help build that into your insurance premiums. So we looked at Microsoft, we thought, okay, that's good. And we thought, well, what else is out there? What else can we use to try and build out a kind of good score for you? And there's an organization called the Centre for Internet Security Baseline, Centre for Internet Security. And they provide a whole range of baseline scores for lots of different products, from Microsoft to all the third-party vendors, a lot of online and on-premise products. And they're really good. Again, but they provide a baseline, which is just a list of different items that you should score against. So there's no prioritization around that, which we felt was going to be important. And there's also no way that you can automatically get that for you. So you have to actually take the list and go through and score it yourself, which takes a lot of time and effort. So we thought, okay, so there's two good things there. So what else can we add in there? And then we looked at our own staff. So in Kick, we've got, a couple of hundred people who work for us, all of whom have been in the organized or been in the IT business for quite a bit of time. So we've got a lot of information, a lot of experience there that we can tie on. And we've asked the internal staff, what kind of issues do you see with your customers? What's the top 10 cybersecurity related problems you see? What's the configuration issues you get? So we've built that into the whole system as well. And we mashed them all together, combined them in, added our own custom scoring metrics, based on our own rating mechanism, and then that then becomes your KickSecure score. So we launched this 2 years ago, and at the time we had around about 90 different metrics that we scored you on. And over the time, we've been working on the background to try and see what we can do to make things better. And at that stage, we've managed to get to the next version, which is KickSecure version 2.
I think your sound's gone again, Stuart.
Okay, so from the start, we always said that KickSecure was supposed to be an evolving system, so it was never meant to stay still. And with version 2, what we've done is we've arranged and we've added another 70 new metrics onto KickSecure, which is giving you an additional 85% of things that we're expanding and monitoring across all your different systems. With 85%, it means that we can give you a better insight into more of the wider range of products that Microsoft are introducing with their Office 365 platform, but also expanding that into some of the additional systems that work out around your organization, some more organizational products, such as how well things are working. So let's just look at what we're adding into the product. So we're giving you better coverage of Microsoft Teams, which more and more people are starting to use. So in the back of using Microsoft Teams, we're also including the updates to what we cover with SharePoint and with OneDrive. So whereas we covered all that technology before, we're going into it in a much deeper and a much broader area or much broader system to check. We're also going to cover a thing called the Power Platform. Now, not a lot of companies are using that as yet, but everyone who's got an Office 365 license has got the ability to use these technologies. So the kind of things we're talking about there is Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, and also with the advent of a lot of AI technology, we're also including Copilot in there as well. So even though you're not using those technologies, you're licensed for them and they're available, so they're all configured in part of your Office 365 system. So it means that we can give you some information about how those are configured, what the default settings are, and where there maybe could be potential areas where hackers would be able to access your systems. So you know that you can then go in and look to close those loopholes down before people get into them. As I say, we're also giving more coverage of the environmental areas around your organization, such as, do you have backups in place? Do you have them for on-prem? Do you have them for your Office 365 systems? Do you have end-user training in place, which might be something that really helps you protect against an attack? How well is your organization prepared if you are attacked and you're able to come out the other side of it? Do you have disaster recovery plans in place? Do you have a business continuity plan in place? So all these kind of things are also included into your into your KickSecure score. We're also expanding your email and phishing protection. So we're scoring you on some new technologies, MTA, STS, DMARC, DKIM, a whole load of different alphabet soup there, but they all mean that we can help protect you against being either victims of spam where you've got spam incoming, or where people are pretending to be your company and sending spam outside, which means that you could then become liable for something else that someone's done in attacking your way. We're also looking at how we can improve the information we include in the reports. So we've expanded all that information out to make it much more useful. We've made it better formatted and made it easier to understand, hopefully, so that you can look at it and then understand your configuration and how things could be better. But we're not stopped there. So as I say, KickSecure was always meant to be evolving, and will continue to evolve, and we'll continue to add new areas and expand the service out over the coming years. And even since we launched version 2 last couple of weeks ago, We've already got a couple of new metrics that we're ready to add into the solution. So what does that mean as a user of KickSecure at the moment if you look and you monitor your score? So the first thing we have to look at is the fact that it does have an impact on your score. So well, it's kind of complex percentages here in play, but if you imagine before where maybe your score was at 68%, so you maybe had a score of around about 470, 480 out of the maximum 700 points, then you were doing quite well. But now because we've increased the size of the number of items you're scoring about, your score might actually have increased. So you might actually have a score now of say 540, 550, but it's out of a maximum of 900, which means that your percentage may have gone down. So if you look at your day-to-day score, you might have noticed a couple of weeks ago that the score reduced down. Don't worry about that. It's all part of the process. You're just been scored out of a larger pie. And hopefully we can manage to make some changes in the back end to help you get yourself back up to where you were before. But let's look at what the score actually means and how to interpret that. So first thing is, don't worry if you don't have 100%. No one ever has 100% in their score. So to get to 100%, what you'd likely have to do would be upgrade a lot of your Microsoft licenses to enable additional protection and initial features. You also probably though have to turn off a lot of the things that you might think would be useful. So for example, one of the things we score on is the ability to talk via Teams to external organizations. So in a really secure organization, that might be seen as a really important thing to do because someone coming in externally might be able to pretend that they were part of your organization and fool some of your users into doing something. But for a lot of companies actually using Teams to talk to their other organizations, their colleagues outside and their partner organizations is a really important part. So because those things are part of the score, you're never going to get to the 100%. But we include those in there because I think it's important as an organization that you understand that the ability to talk externally does have some risks with it. So although that you're using that technology, you just keep in the back of your mind that there is a potential risk and you need to make sure that you tell your staff about that and make sure that everyone in the organization is aware of how they can protect themselves against that. As to what the kind of what looks like good is usually the question we're asked. So at the moment, our average score for our customers after the release of version 2 is somewhere around 35 to 40%. So not a lot of customers have a huge amount of security in place. We'd like to think that all our customers get at least double it. And we ideally want to look at people getting 70% or above. So if you're looking at your score and you're thinking, what can we do to try and improve that? Then if you're down kind of 30, 40%, you're an average, but you could do better. But if your score is low, again, don't panic. Don't think that you're going to have to suddenly spend a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to bring that up again. There's quite a lot of simple steps you could do to increase your score, and which, if you increase your score, means that you're increasing your security and you're adding the ability or reducing the ability for people to come in and then attack you and do damage to your company. So some of the things or some of the metrics we have in there, for example, adding in end user training, security training, or enabling multi-factor authentication. Both of those score at 20 points. 20 points, when you take it out of 900, equates to about 2.4% of your score. So do those two actions if you haven't done them already. You've already added 5% to your score and improved your security along the way. So it's important with the individual scores or with the score, although you can look at the high overall number, it's also important to look at the individual metrics that make that up, so you can understand how that score is built and look at the individual things you could do which would then help to build that score up. So let's go into a bit more detail about how you can actually access your score. So we've got two methods that this can work. So first of all, every month you'll get an email through, or the primary contact in your organization will get an email through which will have the details of your current score on that date. Usually comes through about the third week on a Monday, or the third week of the month on a Monday. And if you're not getting that email, then contact your Kick account manager or talk to us at KickSecure, and we'll be able to make sure that you get those emails through. That email has a link which takes you through to the report portal, but anyone can access that portal at any time. So the reports are updated on a nightly basis, so you can always get your most recent up-to-date score just by going to the portal. You don't have to wait for your monthly email to come through. Now, when you go to log into the Office or the KickSecure portal, you'll see that it's authenticated using your Office 365 login, which means we keep things nice and secure. It also means that as you log in, we know exactly who you are, so we can keep an eye on what you're looking at. And some of the information that's in the report is only viewable by people we've logged in our CRM system as a technical contact. So it's the same people who get the emails through on a regular basis. So if you want to see the full details and dig into the individual metrics, then you need to be available as one of the technical contacts. So again, get in contact with us. So let's just talk about what you actually see on the screen when you get into the portal and how the system's built up. So first thing is at the top, you'll see your actual score. So in this case here, we've got 318 out of 617, which equates to a 51.6% score. And as I say, that will get updated on a regular basis every night. So you can go back in every day and see whether your score has changed. We also, just to make it easier for you, we bring out your Microsoft Secure score, because that is used in a lot of places, especially as, for example, by insurance providers who want to change your insurance policy and your premiums based on what your score is. So we bring that through so you get a nice, easy way of getting that, because it can be quite difficult to try and go through all the Microsoft portals to try and pull that information out. So you can see here your score for Microsoft is again made up of 3 sub-scores, which are then combined together to give you your overall score. If you are doing your insurance claims or your insurance premiums, be aware that some companies ask for the overall secure score, but some just ask for the identity score, which is why we separate those out. The next thing though, and this comes back down to looking at your challenges and how you can best address any budgets you have. We give you a top 3 recommendations based on what we've found from the system. Now, this might not be the ones that give you, if you look at a scoring purely on a numbers basis, the biggest numbers gain, but we prioritize this based on some of the things that we see and we know that cause particular issues for attacks that we see on the service desk. So we can see here in this example, one of our top 3 recommendations is make sure that every user has multi-factor authentication in place, because MFA can stop a lot of attacks dead before you can get anywhere near to your company. We've also got an option there to enable branding as your ED login page and to gain 20 points by SharePoint authentication. These will always change. They won't be the same. They'll all be personalized for your individual account. And as your score changes, we'll always bring, so if you manage to fix something, then we'll bring something else into the top 3 recommendations. So you'll see exactly how you can move, where you can improve what you have. Now that's the top part of the screen. Further down the screen, we've got individual areas where we can look at the different aspects or the different 6 kind of areas that make up the score. So the first thing to point out here is not all scores are equal. So a bit like on the Microsoft score that we showed you earlier on, where, for example, let me just go back, there's 212 points for apps, but only 9 points for data. The KickSecure score is pretty much the same. So, for example, your storage is one of the lowest ranking scores. So even if you manage to get your storage up to 100%, it won't have a huge impact on your overall KickSecure score. So we really want to probably look at the application, the email, and identity, which are the highest scoring areas of the score. Now, for people who are listed as technical contacts, you can actually click on those buttons. Probably something that we didn't make a huge deal of when we did the design of this, but we didn't really let people know. But if you click on, say, for example, application, then it'll expand out and it'll show you all the individual metrics and give you some details as to how the scores are actually made up. So let me just get into a bit more detail as to exactly what those individual areas look at. So first thing at the top left-hand side, you'll see you'll have a little kind of bar graph that shows you the scores. Sorry, I should have mentioned as well that when you view the application or when you view each of these individual sections, the order of the slides or the order of the metrics are based on the highest gain first. So the things that we think should be the most important to you will be at the top of the list, so you don't have to scroll all the way down the list, because it is a very long list with about 160, 170 metrics in there. So you go for example, here we've got the turning off the Office 365 SharePoint infected files available for downloads, which will give you 10 points, and then the next one is 5, and 1 and so on, all the way down. So what we get in the scores, first of all, we get the kind of bar graph that shows you exactly what your score is for this individual metric. And then we'll give you the actual details of the score and what's there. So for example, here we can see that this is for unused accounts which are disabled or deleted. So we get 7 accounts here, and it'll highlight and give you more detail around those. So again, this detail is only available for technical contacts, so not MD in your organisation can log in and find out what this is, because that obviously would be a bit of a security concern. But here I can see that there was an account for Casper who was created in November 24. He's never logged in. Now that could have been a user who's been created but never actually joined the organisation, or it's just a user who maybe just has a job role that doesn't need the need to use IT. But again, that's an account which could have been used as an attack, so that's why we highlight it here. The other thing to point out is the bit in red at the top, the heading, is actually a hyperlink. So if you're an administrator and you've got admin access to your Office 365 or any of your Microsoft systems, if you click on that, it'll actually take you into the page where you can view and make any changes to the back-end system around that. Now, if we look at the next one down, where we've got the ensure the DLP policies are enabled. So what we get here is that, and this is the same for all the metrics, it'll give you the kind of area or the kind of score, which is there are no policies enabled, but it'll also give you a paragraph explaining why this metric is there and what it does. And then at the bottom of every score, we also have a bit more detail. So we can see that this particular metric relates back to a Microsoft Secure score, and that's the ID of the Microsoft Secure score. It's also a CIS benchmark, which is section 3.4. So you can go and look at the CIS benchmarks and get a lot more detail around that. But you can also see, for example, that this check requires additional Microsoft licensing. So this requires an Azure Active Directory Premium P2 license, that's a mouthful, which you don't have. So you'll never be able to get those extra points unless you go back and talk to your account manager and increase your licensing score. And there's also, we'll talk about a thing called KickSecure Premium in a couple of slides, but this is included in KickSecure Premium, but we say that it may disable features that you use in your organization. So we'll talk about that in a few seconds. The other important thing though, at the bottom of the screen or the bottom of the report, we also give you a kind of indication of what we think your maximum score should be, at least what the maximum score would be if we had Premium, which is the service we had that we'll talk about in a couple of seconds, and your current licensing. So you can see here that we're currently on 51%, but we should be able to get to 64% with what we have, all things being equal. So the next question is that people always ask, well, how can I actually improve my score? And just to show you that the graph we've got there is actual live data from KickSecure. You can see where we introduced version 2, where everybody's score took a slight dive down as we added additional scores in back in March. But we can see that the blue line is for our standard customers. So it was around 43%, it's now went down to about 39–40%. But we have our premium service, which we offer, which is sitting up around 70%. So we can see we always give people a boost. So what you can do to improve your score, first thing is, if you have your own IT staff, then they can use this report and they can go in and look at the detail and they can take some action. So for example, in the example we gave earlier on, for the user accounts, they could go through and disable those user accounts to make sure that we close down any potential hacks from users who might be able to access those accounts or might have left the organization but still have their username and password. As I say, the headings are highlighted, so we try and make it as easy and as good a tool for all your IT staff as possible. But for the companies who don't have their own IT staff or whose IT staff don't have the time, and we do have a premium service, and the premium service is there to allow us to help you to improve your score. So current premium customers, you can see in the graph there, have an average of 75% or above on their scores. The dotted line you can see at the top there shows some of the best scores we have. So the best customer we have at the moment has a score of 80%, which means that they've got a much higher security posture than standard customers. But by average, we expect at least 25% boost on whichever score you have at the moment if you take the premium service. So on the premium service, when we introduced the standard service, we obviously wanted to make sure that we had an option for customers who said, well, we can see our scores not great. What can we do to help protect that or to improve it and improve our security? So that's where the KickSecure Premium comes in. So with the Premium, we put together a package which has a lot of different things in there. So not only do we look at what your premium service or what your current secure score is and look to improve that. So we'll look at all the individual metrics and we'll take them on board. And if it's included in the report, then we'll look at fixing those reports for you. If it's something that may have an impact in your organisation, we'll talk to you and we'll discuss it with you before we then lock down your Office 365 and your Microsoft environment to keep things going. But we add in more on top of that just to make sure that we can give a more holistic approach to your IT security. So first thing we do is we look at vulnerability scanning. So we run scans against your external network just to see if there's any particular areas that are, for example, firewall configuration which isn't optimal. We also roll out that to vulnerability scanner to your desktop and your servers, so we can look for any machines which maybe don't have up-to-date software. Now, your KickSecure or your Kick patching service that comes as part of your support service will automatically patch a lot of your Microsoft systems, and also around about 100 different applications from a variety of different vendors. But we don't cover absolutely everything there. And the vulnerability scanning comes in almost as a belt and braces. So we'll check what the patching systems are doing. We'll also look for other software that you might have downloaded or might be installed in your systems. And we can give you an idea of what stuff might have vulnerabilities that could then be attacked or become part of the process of an attacker getting access to your systems and taking over your network. We also look at manual auditing. So as part of the benchmarks and the metrics, we recommend that you check certain log files in certain areas for signs of attacks or signs of anything unusual going on. And again, it's something that quite often your own IT staff don't have time to do. So we'll take that on board for you and we'll check that on a regular basis to make sure that we catch any early signs of things that are happening. Any attack that happens generally just doesn't happen in one go. Quite often it's staged over a matter of months. So there'll be signs at the initial start of the attack where people have maybe tried to get access, and we'll see kind of small signs in the log files before it then moves on to a full-blown attack. So quite often through the auditing, we can pick up on those early signs to stop the attack before things go on. We also look at email security because a huge part of everybody's organisation just now or with everybody's businesses just now is based around email. And phishing attacks and spam are a real problem. So there's 4 different systems in play here: SPF, DMARC, DKIM, and MTA STS. And between them, they stop either phishing attacks from coming into you, or from your system being used to then send phishing attacks out, or for your domains being used to, for example, send spam emails. So all these systems, when we put them in place, mean that we can really tie down your email. So if a customer gets an email that pretends to be from you or says it's from your company, they know it's from your company and it's not been sent by a phishing person on your behalf. And the final area we'll look at is dark web scanning. So again, customers quite often have, or people who work for your organizations will use user accounts and use your company email address to log into external systems, whether it's online shopping or any other of the systems that are out there. And quite often people should use separate passwords, but they don't always use them. So we've had quite a few attacks where someone's used the same username and password to log into their Amazon account or to some other account. Those have been released on the dark web, and then those account details have been used to hack in and log into your Office 365 or your Microsoft systems. So by doing the dark web scanning, we get an advance notice that those things are happening, so we can then advise the users and tell them that it's maybe time that they change the details. So that's the KickSecure Premium service. If it's something you're interested in to try and improve on your existing KickSecure standard score, then get in contact and talk to your account manager. Now that we're covering a much wider area with the additional 85% coverage of products, still for the same price, but still under the KickSecure Premium brands, we're doing a lot more for your money. Next thing, we've got a few. We're going to kind of stop and take some questions in 5 minutes or so, but we've got some kind of standard questions that we're always asked. So I'm going to go through some kind of frequently asked questions first before we open the floor up to everyone else. But the first question we get is, why does my score always fluctuate and why does it go up and down and kind of change around? Well, there's quite a few reasons for that, and it's mainly down to the fact that we score everything on a daily basis, so it does fluctuate. So for example, maybe some new employees that are joining the organisation, you add them in, but they haven't joined, so they haven't actually set up their multi-factor authentication yet, so you'll see a slight drop in your score until that's happened. It could also be with occasions where people have seen the list of user accounts not in use and deleted all of those, and then their scores dropped, and they ask, well, why has that happened? Well, it's actually because of percentages. The couple of users who haven't set up MFA are then a bigger percentage of your user base, so therefore you end up going down slightly as the score. There might also be occasions where we add new metrics. So although we've introduced version 2 as being the kind of huge event where we've added 70 new metrics, we do occasionally add 1 or 2 metrics in an occasional month. So you might see that something changes slightly, or it could be that we've changed how we score things to make them more accurate. And we've improved internal systems, which means that you're getting a more accurate score, but it could mean that your score fluctuates. There's also the changes to Microsoft licensing, so maybe you're licensed for something additional, or we've done some manual auditing, which has refreshed the data and made things better. The other thing I would say about the score fluctuations is it's quite important to keep an eye on those fluctuations. If you see your score start to maybe go down a bit, then it means that something might have changed in your organization. So it could be the signs that something is happening in the background. So it's worthwhile taking note of that, just to make sure and browse into the individual metrics to understand why the score has gone down, and you'll get an idea of what's going on. If you have some issues, then talk to support or talk to your account manager, because we can actually go in and we can break down and show you where the score differences have been over the past couple of months to give you more information. The next question we often get is, can I print out or export the report? So we know that there are some issues the way it's been designed with the graphic design, that if you hit print, it will just give you the top areas that are expanded out. We are working with our designers to try and get that fixed, but in the meantime, if you talk to the account manager, we do have a way internally where we can export that to PDF with all the metrics, so we can give you details of that if you wanted to take that on. But there's also an option, there's a download or an export button at the top of the screen, so click on export and it will download an XLS file with all the details of the individual metrics, so you can then use that to try and get more detail around to what you're doing or where you want to concentrate your resources. And the final question is, if you do upgrade to premium, how long does it actually take for the score to improve? So I said earlier on that we give a 25% or roughly a 25% boost to your score when you move to KickSecure Premium. That doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. So there's a lot of work that we need to do, especially around things like your email security and your vulnerability scanning and so on. And there's also the fact that we don't want to make huge changes to your organization overnight, because that then might mean that you have some issues that come up. Usually we don't have any issues, but sometimes customers have specific requirements or specific things, which means that if we make a change, it has an impact on maybe some users. So we like to do things staged, and we'll concentrate on the most important or the highest ranking issues to improve your security and get you up much quicker before we move down into the smaller and more kind of minuscule areas. But as we mentioned earlier on, any one of those little areas are still just important, because that could be the one thing that stops a user from hacking. So it will take 1-2 months after you bring the order through until you start to see the score really start to improve. But you will see some changes almost immediately, but not up to the full 25%. So congratulations everyone to making it through 40 minutes of me chatting away to you. I just want to open up now just to see whether or not we have any other additional questions from any other users.
So we have had a couple through, Stuart, that I can start on, and if anyone else has a question in the meantime, please feel free to whack it in. They are both sort of covering metrics and the way they're presented back. So I guess we'll cover the first one off with you, Stuart, and then ask you the second. But the first one is around how some metrics are ones that organizations, I guess, accept as a risk, and will version 2 allow you to specify which risks you've accepted and which you've not?
So this is something we've concentrated on for a long time, and there's been a lot of discussions backwards and forwards. So we know, for example, in Microsoft's Secure Score, you can go in and you can tick a box to say that you've evaluated that metric and you've done something with it. So our thought is that if you do that, then it's quite easy to quickly click through and raise your score up to 100% and get a false sense of security, because we're not really kind of giving you, a tick box, or we're not, you're saying 100% score, but you're not really potentially actually being marked against that. So what instead we say is that if you've got additional metrics around them, or you've got metrics where you know that you have a mitigation in place, then the score will remain the same, but you're always shown that you don't have the points for that because you don't have a particular system, or you don't have, a particular thing in place for that. So it might be just that you've decided that you're not worried about that, but we'll still keep it there just so you're aware of it. We do in version 2 have a system where if you have an alternative mitigation, so for example, in backups are a good example. So if you have backups in place through a third-party provider which isn't Kick, then we can give you the points for the backup. You just have to come back and tell us about it. We're looking at ways we can make that available to the end users so that you can go in and you can mark it yourself. That update isn't quite there yet, but come back and tell us and we'll mark that off to say, yes, we're doing backups through Acme Corp. But there's only for certain metrics we can do that, the ones that might have an alternative mitigation.
Thanks, Stuart. Well, that's pretty much answered the same question I had there as well, because it was around version 2, allowing you to specify which risks have been mitigated in another way. So you're saying the solution is still to reach out via your account manager directly to the team then to ask you guys to update that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got the functionality there. It's just how we make it available to end users. But the plan is that we will make the alternative mitigation available.
Okay.
But we will make sure that if you put an alternative, we will manually check them to make sure that you're not just ticking the box to get the points. So there will be a kind of manual audit around that as well.
Okay, cool. Then the third question, which was probably more directed to myself, was around when you were referring to account managers, that account manager for the sports services, or should you have a separate account manager for KickSecure? So I can help answer that, Joanne. You have a single account manager as your single point of contact. So if there's anything that they can't answer, they'll certainly include one of the members or security specialists from our KickSecure team to help them answer it. But if you sort of direct all communication, they'll be your single point of contact across KickSecure and your technical support and consultancy services.
You can also email the KickSecure team as well, so kicksecure@kickict.co.uk, or you can reply back to the email that you get with your from any of the KickSecure team. So your monthly email with a report, for example, you can reply back to that. It's not an actively monitored mailbox, but we will pick up on any comments or requests and action them. So 2 methods that you can go back and take your options.
Okay, and then another question that's just came in as well. Sure. How do KickSecure get information about whether we have an incident response plan, as it wouldn't be evident from our systems?
So that's one of the new ones which we've added in again. So at the moment, if you want to come back through to the KickSecure team or through your account manager, just to give us details what the incident response plan is. We're also looking longer term at looking into a way that for companies who don't have an incident response plan, that we can potentially give you a kind of template that you can use to try and build things up. So that's one that, talk about KickSecure always evolving. That's something to look forward to at the moment. And obviously when we put the alternative mitigation system in place, so you can put in your own details, the incident response plan will be one of the ones that you'll be able to put in details for. We're also looking, incident response plans, business continuity plans are an interesting one, because quite often you want to make sure you've got somewhere external that you can keep a copy of those plans. So we're also looking at a way that you might be able to upload those plans so that we can hold them securely for you. Because quite often one of the things that happens is that you've got your KickSecure plan or your incident response plan, it's on your SharePoint, and then you're hacked and you don't have access to SharePoint, so you don't have access to your plan. So again, we're giving you an option that you can hold that off-site and available to us, so that if you do have an incident, that we can help you work through the plan.
Yeah, and then I think another comment off the back of the sort of previous points in the metrics, Stuart. So it was around accepting the risk, and the fact that you said you wouldn't want to give the points, kind of, I guess, for ticking the box. But is there a way, I guess, if they've accepted that risk, we can remove that from the reports at the moment, so that they can, I guess, focus on the ones that they've not addressed?
So I mean, certainly the main kind of reason why we keep them in there is just so that although you've accepted that there is a risk there and you're aware of it, we want to make it still available so that you still have it in your face every day to say that the risk is still there. It's something we consider putting in a kind of hide from report option to drop it down so it's still there. It won't impact your score, but maybe just will impact the scoring mechanisms. So we're looking at some graphical changes as well, because quite often, for example, there's a lot to scroll through in the report, especially if you've got, for example, a lot of unused user accounts. So we're looking at ways we can condense that just from a graphical point of view. So we might look to include that as part of that.
Okay, perfect. I think that's us out of time, and I haven't seen any other questions, Quinn, so we'll probably look to sort of close it out there. But thanks, Stuart. Hopefully everyone found that pretty useful today. If you do have any questions that come up off the back of it, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Stuart, or pick them up directly with your account manager. Likewise, we'd love to hear any feedback. If you think there's anything that you'd like us to include in these sessions in the future, or other topics that you think would be useful for us to cover, we'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, as I mentioned, there'll be a recording sent out. I think it'll be later today, which will have the recording that you can send on, or you can view again at a later date. So thanks again for joining, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.